Here is a breakdown or teaching video of kata called Kanku, also referred to as Kanku Dai. The form is kind of the grandfather of all of your Shotokan forms. So if we take Heian 1 through 5 or Bassai, you will see multiple components of that, which I'll refer to as I go through the teaching version of the form. Now, Kanku could be translated as sky viewing or looking to the sky, so that opening move reflects that. Otherwise, it really is just all those forms put together in a way that's really nice and cohesive. If you're looking for just the form, look at the Black Belt playlist and just take Kanku Dai from there. This is about the teaching and breaking down of individual moves. So we start off with a regular, typical Shotokan type bow. I'm in my ready position. This first move comes out of Bassai in a way. Hands come up to the front, I'm looking to the sky. Hands come out to the side, and then I extend. My second technique is going from side to side, 1, 2. Now this could be looked at like the move out of hand 4, or the move out of the beginning of hand 2, depending on how you do it traditionally. So from that position, pivot to one side, notice the back stance, weight transitions, hands change, back stance to the other side. From there, I'm coming across and back to Bassai again. My hands chambered to my side, left hand is out in front. I drop down to horse stance, lower the hand, and then pivot into a front stance. If you're in a good horse stance and you pivot, you'll end up in a pretty good front stance. Pivot to the left, back to the left punch, and then pivot again, opposite side with the outward block position from Bassai. From there, I come across, pivoting, chambering to the side kick, stretch forward. This is directly out of Heian 2. I take my first shudo, chamber second shudo, chamber third shudo, and then to spear. Again, directly out of hand 2. Let's go through that part again. So I bow, opening from Bassai, pivot from hand 4, hand 2, across like Bassai, drop and punch, pivot, punch, pivot, chamber. Side, shudo 1, shudo 2, shudo 3, and spear. We'll take that as part 1 for now. The next section goes into a hand 4, hand 5 / Bassai combination. So what we're going to do from the spear hand, you've landed in a spear hand, you're in a pretty good front stance. Now from hand 4, there's this elbow block or elbow strike position where we pivot and turn in shudo. That's going to come right out of Kanku right now. So from that spear hand, I'm going to pivot 180 degrees. The left hand comes down, right hand comes up to the side. Now if you look at the fingers from here, they're pointing towards the side wall. My other hand is pointing towards the front where I'm going. I pivot, turn, and get my shudo. This looks like an upward-outward block. This is looking like a shudo to the neck. I kick, that's directly out of hand 4. My foot lands forward, I slide again, opening up that stance, allowing my front stance pivot from an earlier lesson. Turn and strike from hand 5, or Bassai, grasp and pull back. In Kanku, we pull to our hip, whereas in hand 5, we stay in our long stance, and Bassai, our feet come together. So this comes back to here. Now I'm going to lift and strike to the neck again. This repeats, hand 4, I kick, pivot to the side, strike, grab, and pull, and there is hand 5 again. From there, the next part, pivot to the side, look to the left, side kick out of hand 4, open the stance, elbow, pull, side kick to the right, open the stance, pivot and strike. Okay, from there, I'm going to turn. So from that elbow strike position, I've just finished, I'm going to pivot all the way around and shoot up to the side. So from the elbow, turn, shudo 1, 45-degree angle shudo 2, right shudo 3, left shudo at a 45-degree angle. And then we're going to come back. So that would be part 2. Well, so we had the hand 4, hand 5 part. Now when we're looking at that, we're really trying to open the stance and get that pivot. So talking about opening the stance using a push, a pivot, or a post. In this case, this is all about that pivot. So when I open up and I strike, whether it's the hand 4 technique from here, or when I make that same hand 5 technique to that strike low. it's still going to be all about that stance and that hip rotation. The side kick elbows look just like out of hand 4. There's really no difference. The only part that's a little challenging or awkward is when you go from this strike, turning and making that pivot. But other than that, it's a side kick and an elbow. But notice the same thing with the stance. After we kick, we have a tendency just to put the foot down and be very linear. We want to kick, open the stance, and get that same pivot. The next turn is the 4 shudos. Now, if you look at a traditional Heian 1 or Heian 2 Shotokan form, it's always done with a shudo to the one side, the second shudo goes to 45, then the third to the other side, fourth shudo goes to the 45. That's traditional, although for some reason in our system we've always done it with 90 degrees and then the 2 shudos at the end. Okay? I don't really have a preference necessarily, but Kanku reflects back to the more traditional way. All right, so the next part, part 3, I've just finished up my 4th shudo. I'm going to do this facing both ways so the camera can catch it. But I'm going to turn and do that same opening Heian 4 type block. From there, kick, step forward, parry, parry, strike. Now my guess is that this is going to reflect a lot of what this is in Heian 4. So we tend to see this sometimes in forms. But since we're going into that X position, it's probably the same thing. I make that block strike, kick, parry, parry, strike. My body's relatively forward with that downward fist. I step back to circular outward block, follow up with 2 punches. From there, I'm grabbing, dropping down, all the way up, lifting the leg, and coming forward and slamming down to the floor, pivoting again back to the back of the row, stepping forward with a shudo, spinning out, 1, out, 1, 2, and then chambering like hand 2. So that's a whole bunch of moves. Now what's interesting on that is I don't think it really reflects any of the other forms that we know. So that's really the first part in the form where it seems very different. It is possible that that's coming from another Shotokan form that we just don't do in our school and our curriculum. So now from the opposite side. So we finished before, we had finished from that shudo at 45 and we pivoted. So going from the other direction, just so you can see it better, this is my 45-degree angle. I'm going to turn, make my kick, parry, parry, striking forward. Again, looking like probably the cross-X position out of hand 4. When I step back, circle out, punch, punch. Grasp the wrist, come down, lift up, step forward and throw down. Pivot and throw. This looks like a throw out of Taikyoku 5, which is a kata that's kind of unique to our system. We step forward and shudo, 270 degrees, single punch, double, 1, 2, and then we chamber. Please remember that that is the opposite. I did it already from the other side, so I just did the reverse so you could see it if you had trouble catching it on the camera. Okay. The ending. Now we're going back into a hand 2, hand 3 type of movement. When I make my side kick, then I'm finishing up with the shudo, pressing for the spear. Now in hand 3, we tuck this in, spin around back fist. I'm going to do a very similar movement, but I'm going to come over the top and down as opposed to straight across. As I come down, this hand opens, right hand pivots across. I chamber back onto my left hip, extend with a C punch. This looks like the C punches out of Bassai. Left goes high, chamber on the right hip, inside left crescent, which is also the first time we ever see one of those. It's always done with the right foot in Bassai. From there, I pivot across or open the stance, and then there's my C punch from Bassai from the other side. Double chamber back, X block down. I'm going to turn off the right foot, so pivoting on that right foot, my hands are then going to come forward, make my X block high, pull back. Then with a left foot, right foot kick, left, right, parry, parry, and there's my back fist again, just like that middle part. I close by dropping down, scooping, and coming around. And that scoop comes out of the side as well. I come to the side, and there's the bow. Okay, so breaking that part down again. I have my side kick, so I finished from here. Side kick, shudo, Step forward, there's the spear hand. I tuck in, spin around, back fist strike, tuck in, pull. There's the C-punch, pull back. C-punch from here, draw back with both, strike down, out and around, grasp and pull, jump kick, parry, parry, strike, Bassai leg scoop, hand comes up and around, feet come together, and there's bow. So that is Kanku. I broke it down into, I believe, 4 parts. I would take it one part at a time, feel comfortable with it. The hardest part about Kanku is that parts of this form are going to feel so familiar that it's going to mess up your other forms. And also you'll be in the middle of doing Kanku and go back into a Heian or a Bassai or something like that. Just very common. Don't worry about it. You have plenty of time to work on this form. But it is something that I suggest. Everything's the same. The stances are the same. This is a traditional Shotokan, so even while you're learning it, take the time to do it slowly. Get every position right. You already know how to do these, and if you do not know how to do it correctly, go back and make sure you do and work that in. And take what you learned from Kanku, and bring it back into Bassai and make all your Heian forms that much better. Enjoy working on Kanku Dai.